Greetings, everybody. It's me, your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete, and this is my series Nails in a Coffin, where we learn that with great kills, there must also come great nails. Thank you for checking out this video. I really do appreciate it. Well, we only have two more stops on a trip through Texas, and today we're talking about 2017's Leatherface, which is a prequel to 1974's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And if you haven't already, check out all my other videos on this channel. I've covered every other movie in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise that came before this one. I've also covered all the Child's Play movies and the Scream movies as well as a lot of onesies, twosies out there. So after you check out this video, please check out all my other videos on this channel. I would really appreciate it. But before we get started with Leatherface, here's a summary of all the movies I've covered so far with their average Nails in the Coffin ratings. The first Texas Chainsaw Massacre had an average of 1.4 nails in a coffin. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 had an average of 1.8 nails. Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 had an average of 1.2 nails in the coffin. Texas Chainsaw Massacre The Next Generation had an average of 1.7 nails. Texas Chainsaw Massacre The Remake had an average of 1.9 nails. Texas Chainsaw Massacre The Beginning had an average of 2.1 nails in a coffin. And our most recent coverage, Texas Chainsaw 3D, had an average of 1.2 nails in a coffin. Before we get started, I do want to ask if you can please hit that like button and leave a comment down below on what you think of this video, if you agree or disagree with any of my nail rankings. And also, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. I'm having a lot of fun with this channel. I put a video out every Friday, and I have a lot planned for the rest of the year, so I'd appreciate it if you take this journey with me. So, sit back, relax, and you guys should know this by now. We only need a little bit more gas in those chainsaws as we put some nails in a coffin for 2017's Leatherface. The movie opens up at the Sawyer house with a birthday party being held by matriarch Verna Sawyer for youngest Sawyer, Jedediah. Jedediah gets a chainsaw as a birthday present, and he's being asked by his family to kill a man they have tied up at the dinner table, and this man, they are accusing him of stealing pigs. Jedediah just can't seem to do it. He gets scared and winds up cutting the man's leg with the chainsaw. But Grandpa, he steps up to the plate and he winds up killing the man with a mallet smash to the head. And if you remember from the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Grandpa was always good at killing.
My old grandpa's the best killer there ever was.
At 4 minutes in, we have our first kill in the movie, and it is the pig thief, and I'm going to give him 2 nails in a coffin. Now, we don't have much to go on. We never see how he's captured or if he really is guilty of being a pig thief. So again, not much to go on. So with this pig thief, we're just going to give him 2 nails in the coffin to start with for our first kill in Leatherface. We're next to 1955, where Betty Hartman and Ted Hardesty are in their pickup truck driving down a country road. They're kissing and having fun, but they almost hit this child in the middle of the road who appears to be injured. Betty gets out of the car to go see if the child is injured, and we find out that it actually is Jedediah. In an effort to try and help the child, Betty actually follows Jedediah to this old, dilapidated barn. She's inside, walking around, looking for Jedediah, calling out to him, see if she can help this poor kid. She falls down this trapdoor onto some farm equipment below, gravely injuring herself. Drayton and Nubbin Sawyer come out of hiding, and then we see this large engine held by a chain, and they pull it on top of Betty. Nubbins releases it, the engine falls down on her, crushing her, and kills her instantly. At 9 minutes in, we have our second kill in Leatherface, and it is Betty Hartman. And unfortunately for her, I can't see giving her more than 1 nail in the coffin. She was an innocent young girl, but she followed some kid to a dilapidated barn, and this kid was wearing a dead cow's head on top of his head. He didn't look hurt. He didn't say anything. Yet she followed him into this sketchy barn, and unfortunately for her, her naivety caused her to get 1 nail in the coffin. Ranger Hartman shows up to the barn, and he immediately wants to arrest Drayton Sawyer for the murder. But the other cops are telling him they really can't do anything since nobody witnessed the murder, and Drayton is saying he just found the body in this barn, so they can't arrest him. That's not how the law really works, though, does it? There's no investigation on how Betty fell down this trap door in a barn and the engine was released by a chain by itself and killed her. not how the law works, and it's kind of lazy writing in this movie. Verna shows up to the scene and she immediately demands that the Rangers let her kids go, that they're innocent and they didn't do anything. You're right. Ranger Hartman, well, since he can't arrest Drayton Sawyer or anything, he tells Verna he's going to take Jed away from her, stating child endangerment.
You take one of mine, and I'll take all yours, Verna.
It's next 10 years later, and we meet Lizzie, who's a newly hired nurse at the Gorman Reformatory. And she winds up creating a bond with patients/inmates Jackson and Bud. A short while later, Verna Sawyer shows up to the reformatory wanting to see her son. She brings a lawyer with her who has some paperwork and injunction, and she presents it to Dr. Lang, who is the doctor in charge of the reformatory. And he tells her, hey, no matter what paperwork you have, it's impossible for you to see Jed since names were changed once they entered the reformatory. And Jed was taken so long, there's no way he would remember who Verna was. And Dr. Lang tells Verna she's going to need to get additional paperwork, another injunction, if there's any chance of her seeing her son Jedediah. Verna Sawyer is very upset, and on her way out of the facility, she violates a bunch of security protocols, and this results in a riot inside the facility, and a bunch of inmates are let loose, and a lot of inmates and staff are actually murdered. This is a chaotic scene in the movie with a lot of kills happening all at once with little to no buildup. So I'm going to try and go over them the best I can. During the riot, at 25 minutes in, 2 orderlies are beaten to death by inmate Bud. Bud was restrained to a chair, and during the riot, he's able to break these restraints, and he uses one of the arms of the chair to knock out one of the orderlies, and he winds up beating both of them to death. These 2 orderlies are each going to get 1 nail in the coffin. We see earlier that they were abusing Bud with what looks like electroshocks. Now, he's just a kid who has some mental issues, so they're pretty much scumbags, and their actions, abusing a child, resulted in their deaths. Even their restraints were poor since Bud obviously had no issues breaking them. So, the 2 orderlies who are beaten to death by Bud are each going to get 1 nail in the coffin apiece. At 27 minutes in, we see Clarice, who's one of the female patients, and she's laying type of this girl who's on a bed, and she's strangling her to death. Unfortunately for this young lady, she's only going to get 2 nails in the coffin because we didn't see the lead up or the cause or anything. There's really nothing to go on here. So this poor young lady who was kind of in the wrong place at the wrong time, being strangled by Clarice, is going to get 2 nails in the coffin. Next is Dr. Lang, who is killed by Bud. Dr. Lang is in his office and he hears loud banging on his office door. He opens the door and Bud is standing there, and Bud walks in. Dr. Lang has a club in his hand and he hits Bud in the head. Has little to no effect on him. So Bud charges at Dr. Lang and he's able to grab him by the head and start smashing his head into the window until the window breaks and Dr. Lang dies. At 28 minutes in, Dr. Lang was killed and he's going to get 1 nail in the coffin. He was a sadistic doctor/warden who abused mentally ill youth, and this directly resulted in Bud getting revenge for the abuse he had experienced and probably a lot of other inmates and patients had experienced. So, since Dr. Lang is such an irresponsible asshole, he's definitely getting 1 nail in the coffin. The kills are piling up right now, and we see a nurse who is attacked and killed by an inmate with a straight razor. This poor nurse had no time to react, no time to defend herself, and, if you've been watching these videos for a while, when there's no time for these people to react or even defend themselves, they're going to get 2 nails in this coffin for this poor nurse. Immediately after the nurse's death, Jackson saves Lizzie, who was about to be attacked by the violent inmate who just killed the other nurse. Jackson kicks him in the face, he falls down to the ground, and Jackson pretty much just stomps this inmate to death. Now this inmate, his actions directly resulted in him getting killed, so he's definitely going to get 1 nail in the coffin, and he deservedly so was stomped to death by Jackson. So I appreciate what Jackson did right there, and that asshole inmate is only going to get 1 nail in the coffin. During the riot, Ike and Clarice, who were 2 inmates in the mental institution, they escape and they take Jackson and Lizzie hostage, putting both of them in the trunk of a car. While they're pulling away, we see this one patient who's in a wheelchair. They're pushed out of a window, falling a couple stories down, and they're killed. This is another one of those mean-spirited kills, and there's not much to go on. We didn't actually see what happened, how they were pushed out of the window, or who did it. Not much to go on right here, so the person in a wheelchair, they're going to get 2 nails in the coffin. This group arrives at a rest stop barbecue diner the following morning. They go inside to get something to eat. During the breakfast, Clarice knocks over a glass. She takes out a knife and stabs the person behind her in the neck, killing him. She takes his gun. Ike grabs a shotgun from behind the counter, and Lizzie winds up shooting 2 other diner patrons. A lot of murders here again, and similar to what I did in the mental institution, I'm going to lump all these together right now. So the 3 diner patrons, one that got stabbed and 2 got shot, I'm going to give each of them 2 nails in a coffin apiece. They tried to help out. They tried, and one was killed, not knowing what was going on. It was by surprise. Wasn't much lead up here. It was very quick, very fast. So those 3 diner patrons, I'm going to give each of them 2 nails in a coffin. Now, the waitress that was waiting on Ike and Clarice, she was injured, and she's slumped on the floor against the diner counter, and, she's really hurt. Ike, who's a real scumbag, got a shotgun, and before anybody realizes what else is going on, Ike blows her away. Tammy, the waitress, I'm going to give her 2 nails in a coffin. She was an innocent victim here, just at the wrong place at the wrong time. After the diner massacre, the group find an abandoned mobile home where they spend a night. During this whole time, Ike is just been a real jerk to Bud. He's constantly insulting him and abusing him. So it's late at night. Ike is out on the middle of a field, going to the bathroom. Bud walks up behind him and hits him in the head with the tree branch. We then see Bud is dragging Ike across the field, takes Ike, puts Ike's mouth and teeth on top of a large rock. Then Bud takes his boot and stomps the back of Ike's head, crushing his head and kills him. At 53 minutes in, Ike was killed by Bud, and Ike is getting definitely 1 nail in the coffin. Ike's ego and psychotic nature was bound to get him killed sooner or later, and if he wasn't such an asshole, egotistical, psychological moron, he might not be dead by now, but we were happy to see him die, and he's definitely getting 1 nail in the coffin. Clarice wakes up in the morning and sees that Ike is not there, so she goes out into the field and the woods looking for him. She's calling out for Ike until she gets a surprise from somebody.
Hello, Clarice.
No, not him. It's Deputy Sorrells, played by Finn Jones. Deputy Sorrell brings Clarice over to Ranger Hartman, and a short while later, we see Clarice, on her knees, on the ground, surrounded by cops, and they're all standing outside the mobile home. Clarice makes a really dumb comment to Ranger Hartman about his dead daughter.
Man, crying over a stupid dead little girl.
Ranger Hartman takes out his revolver and shoots her in the head, killing her. At 59 minutes in, Clarice is now dead, and just like the 1 bullet in her head, she's also going to get 1 nail in the coffin. Lizzie is able to flag down a passing cop car. They run up to the middle of the road. The cop gets out of the car and calls it in. And as he's calling in, Bud is pretty much slowly charging the cop. They get into a struggle. Bud is on top of him, laying on the ground. Well, the cop is able to get his sidearm out and shoots Bud in the head, killing him. At an hour and 2 minutes in, Bud was killed, and I'm going to give him 2 nails in the coffin. He had a mental disability, but he did protect those he cared about, and he hurt those who hurt him. That's why he fought the cop, and unfortunately, Bud was killed. So, Bud, big guy, I'm giving you 2 nails in the coffin. Jackson saw Bud get killed right in front of him, and Jackson and Bud had a definite bond that they had built together staying in the Gorman house. Jackson ran over to the cop, who was still laying on the ground. He had just pushed Bud off of him, took a swing at the cop, punched him, starts beating on him. He then is able to drag the cop over to his car, sticks his head in the door jamb, and starts slamming the car door on the cop's head until he beats him to death. At an hour and 3 minutes in, the cop was beaten to death. I'm going to go with 1 nail in the coffin. As soon as he pushes Bud off of himself, Jackson is there. But it looks like the cop had some time to get a shot off at Jackson, but wasn't able to. And as soon as he killed Bud, he didn't spring to his feet or anything. Similar to all the police officers and law enforcement in this entire franchise, They're written very poorly, like they had minimum to no law enforcement training at all. So the police officer that Jackson beat to death won nail in the coffin. Right after Jackson beat the cop to death, Lizzie is able to jump inside the cop car and she tries to drive away. But unfortunately, Jackson is able to jump in the cop car with her. They're then being chased by Ranger Hal Hartman, and he starts shooting at them. And eventually he's able to get a shot off, and it hits Jackson in the side of his face, causing massive damage. This causes Lizzie to lose control of the car, and they flip over, and the car crashes, rolling over on the top of itself. After the crash, Ranger Hartman is able to get Jackson, and he takes Jackson and ties him up in the barn where his daughter Betty was killed, and he has Lizzie there also holding her hostage. Meanwhile, Deputy Sorrells, played by Finn Jones, he visits Verna Sawyer's house, and he tells Verna that Ranger Hartman has her son Jed at the barn.
Hartman's got your boy holed up in an old barn somewhere.
Apparently, he was working for her, giving her information in order to get paid. She goes to pay him. She throws the money on the ground. Deputy Sorrells goes to pick it up, but he's tackled by one of Verner's kids, and they stab him in the side, and they take the deputy and dump him into the pig pen, where the pigs all attack him, and they pretty much eat him to death. An hour and 9 minutes in, Deputy Sorrells is dead, and this poor excuse for police officer is going to get one nail in the coffin. He was a dirty cop being paid by Verna, and he was double-crossed by her. No surprise, he should have known he was working with a murderous family, and he had no awareness or guard up while on their property. So he's pretty much stupid. This was an easy one for me. Deputy Sorrells, saw your iron fist, but you're getting one nail in the coffin. Back at the barn, Ranger Hartman informs Lizzie that Jackson is Jedediah. Not a surprise to anybody by this point, but Verna shows up with her family in tow, and they're able to incapacitate Ranger Hartman, and they take Hartman and Lizzie back to the Sawyer's house. Back at the Sawyer's, Verna Sawyer is sewing Jackson's face up from the injury. Apparently, this injury really ruined his entire mental capacity. I know he's in a lot of pain, but ever since he took this injury, you really see how they're trying to turn him into Leatherface. After she sews his face up, she puts this strap on his face saying it's going to hold everything together, and she tightens it down on his face. We then see that Verna has Ranger Hartman on her couch, and here comes Jed with his chainsaw, and Jed has lost any type of intelligence or social skills. He's no longer that young, good-looking kid that was almost able to win over Lizzie. And there's a bunch of dialogue back and forth between Ranger Hartman and Verna. We know Ranger Hartman is doomed, so the new Leatherface, Jedediah, starts up his chainsaw, and he kills Ranger Hartman right there on the couch. An hour and 16 minutes in, Ranger Hartman was killed, and this one kind of hurt me because I really love Steven Dorff, but I'm going to give him one nail in the coffin. He was stupid. He had the opportunity to kill Jed and get his revenge when he was in the barn, or even when he was pulling Jedediah and Lizzie out of a car crash. He could have killed him at any time and get his revenge. And he gave Verna the chance to show up to the barn with all of her family while he was outnumbered. And yeah, totally stupid on his part. And even though I love you, Steven Dorff, your character, Ranger Hartman, is going to get one nail in the coffin. Lizzie was in his room, and she witnessed right in front of her Ranger Hartman being killed. Obviously, this freaks her out. One of the Sawyer's kids was holding her. I think it was Drayton. But she's able to break free of him, and she runs out of the house, and Jedediah starts chasing her with this chainsaw, and he's even running all weird now. Maybe he got injured during the crash. Lizzie is running in the woods, and she gets her foot caught in a bear trap and falls down. Jedediah is able to catch up to her. She's trying to reason with him, and Jed is looking at her. It looks like he's lost all of his mental faculties that he had the entire movie before he got shot in the face. And just as Lizzie is starting to get through to him, she insults his mama. He gets mad and cuts her head off with the chainsaw. Lizzie is our last kill in 2017's Leatherface, and she's going to get two nails in her coffin. She tried to get away multiple times during the movie, and she almost got through at the end, but she insulted his mama, and she may have thought the same Jedediah that she was, connecting with the entire length of this movie was still there, and she didn't know that because he got shot in the face turned him really automatically into Leatherface. So for a final kill in Leatherface Lizzie, you're getting 2 nails in the coffin. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Those are all my nails in the coffin for 2017's Leatherface. Here's a summary of all the nails I have awarded. The Pig Thief had 2 nails in the coffin. Betty Hartman, 1 nail in the coffin. The 2 orderlies that were killed by Bud each had 1 nail in the coffin. The female inmate that was strangled by Clarice had 2 nails in the coffin. Dr. Lang, who was beaten to death by Bud, had 1 nail in the coffin. The nurse had 2 nails in the coffin. The violent inmate that had killed the nurse had 1 nail in the coffin. The random person in the wheelchair had 2 nails in the coffin. The 3 diner patrons each had 2 nails in the coffin. And Tammy, the waitress at the diner, also had 2 nails in the coffin. Ike, who was stomped to death by Bud, had 1 nail in the coffin. Clarice got shot in the head, had 1 nail in the coffin. Bud, 2 nails in the coffin. The police officer that killed Bud had 1 nail in the coffin. Deputy Sorrells, who was a dirty cop, had 1 nail in the coffin. Ranger Hartman, he shouldn't have wasted all that time. He has 1 nail in the coffin. And our final kill that we just covered, Lizzie, had 2 nails in the coffin. That gives us an average nails in the coffin rating for Leatherface as 1.5 nails. So Leatherface now also dethrones Texas Chainsaw 3D with the highest body count with 20. Here's a summary of the average nails in the coffin ratings for each of the movies I've covered so far. The first Texas Chainsaw Massacre had an average of 1.4 nails in the coffin. Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 had an average of 1.8 nails. Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 3 had an average of 1.2 nails. Texas Chainsaw Massacre The Next Generation had an average of 1.7 nails in the coffin. The remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre had an average of 1.9 nails. Texas Chainsaw Massacre The Beginning had an average of 2.1 nails in the coffin. Texas Chainsaw 3D had an average of 1.2 nails in the coffin. And we just found out that Leatherface had an average of 1.5 nails in the coffin. Only one more video to go in the entire Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. And next Friday, I will be covering Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022, which was recently released by Netflix. So how do you guys think that this last Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie in the franchise is going to compare to the rest of the nails in the coffin averages of the movies I've covered so far? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Also, if you haven't already, please check out all my other videos on this channel. I've covered all the other Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies in the franchise. I've also have videos for the entire Child's Play franchise and Scream franchise as well as some other onesie-twosies around there. So I really appreciate it if you would check out all those other videos. If you haven't already, please hit that like button down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. And I love when you guys make comments and give me your opinions, or if you agree or disagree. I love to hear what you have to say. And most importantly, if you have not already, hit that subscribe button. I'm having fun growing this channel, and I love taking all you guys and gals on this journey with me. I really do appreciate it. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay frosty. I am your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete, and remember, with great kills, there must also come great nails.